Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Beading while Reading. Today's story is another creepypasta by Bradigan Ummo, titled, "If you're reading this, please don't apply for a dishwasher position at Riverside Memories Retirement Community." I was opening the shift that day. I walked past the golf cart with its flat tire. It was coming up on its second anniversary of being broken. I scanned my pass and opened the door to the kitchen. I walked in, past the storage closets, prep stations, and freezer, to finally meet the sink. While I was walking, I was thinking about what the twist was going to be for the final of a show I was watching. Or about maybe going back to school after I saved up money. I thought about how nice it would be to leave at the end of the day, to feel the sun setting on my skin and a cool breeze of wind hitting my face after being next to steam all day was a feeling of unmatched relief. I also couldn't wait to blast some heavy metal in the blown out stereo. It helped drown out the stressful day I knew was ahead. It didn't matter. None of my thoughts mattered in that moment as I rounded the corner of a cooler to get a view of the sink. I only remember seeing the bloody, lifeless bodies of my coworkers on the floor. I don't even remember picking up a notebook covered in blood. I was the first to find it that morning. I immediately called my supervisor, security, 911, and anyone else I can get a hold of. Security got here first, a big man named Reggie who gagged at the first sight of the two bodies. I don't blame him. One was missing half of the flesh on his arm, leaving the ulna and radius sticking through, and the other was purple, with hundreds of small, needle-like holes in his face and neck. I tried not to register them as people who train me and talk to me every day, but it was too hard. I was in tears, with Reggie consoling me when the police came. They closed off the dish pit, covered the bodies, and got our stories. I didn't even know I had blood on me. I guess I tried to resuscitate them, even if it was a vain effort. I was cleared, and the restaurants, kitchen, and everything else at Riverside Memories Retirement Community were closed for the day. Days passed and no new information came to light. The police said the deaths were murders, but no suspects have been identified yet. The police were still investigating, but the residents had to eat, so the kitchen opened a week later. There went all the evidence to solve the case, but truly, there was no evidence. None of it made any sense. The bar gate out front was open because no one was scheduled for security that day, so no one would have seen someone suspicious come and go. No weapons were found in the investigation, so how could one of their arms be shredded like that? What about the hundreds of small holes in the other's face and neck? Could Raymond and Grant have killed each other? I knew these people. They didn't hate each other. There were only 4 of us in the dish pit. Sure, some people came and went, but we grew together to be a small family. Grant hadn't even clocked in yesterday, and there was the blood-covered notebook, which had ended up in my backpack, stained my clothes. I only now just realized it, as Maxwell had woken me up from my intense daydream about evidence while I was washing the dishes to see if I was hurt. It was my first shift back, and the idea of having to stand there where the 2 bodies were to wash dishes upset me. There was an extra weight in front of the sink, like 3 hands had grabbed my legs and forced me to stand there. Usually the kitchen was a bustling place. Service would run by for extra silverware. Cranky chefs would scream at you for entering within a certain distance of their invisible bubble. And overall, it was loud, yet productive as a place. Now it was like a ghost town. Only a skeleton crew was in place. 2 chefs who would normally be barking some orders had gone silent. The dozens of footsteps and cartwheels rambling the ground were absent, and even the heat vents above the grills, which normally had a consistent hum, had fallen ever so silent. The only thing worse than being stuck with your thoughts in silence was that whoever was in charge of cleaning the blood didn't do a good job at all. There were still blotches on the ceiling and high up on the walls. I was holding back the floodgates of tears all morning. In the past week, I couldn't get the image of their bodies out of my mind. Trying to solve their murders was the only escape I had. Jacqueline? Jacqueline? His deep voice always made me jump. Yes, sorry. Hey, what's up? I stammered out in an over-friendly customer service voice. Your jacket, it's bloody. Did you hurt yourself? My supervisor noted. I looked down and sure enough, blood had stained a large portion of my blue kitten hoodie. I had no idea what caused it. The blood wasn't fresh. It looked like it had been there for a while. Oh God, you're right, but I didn't feel anything. Do you think I could have grabbed a knife by the blade or maybe... Hey, it's okay. Go wash up and I can finish the set. If you didn't hurt yourself, go home for the day, okay? Actually, I think it's best if you just head home. I'll hold down the fort. Besides, we have a new hire coming in. I want to show him the ropes and try to get another set of hands in here as soon as possible. I was so glad to hear those words. I will. Thanks, Max. I say it as I untie my work apron and throw it on a drying rack. Maxwell had been able to feel my hesitation about coming back. I guess it was pretty easy because I had been silent all shift, staring at the blood. After the brief interaction, all my thoughts were on the bodies again. Some of my uneasiness was relieved by Maxwell. He cared for us like family. When he came into work that day, I found the bodies. He didn't stop crying. Eventually, he ran out of tears, but his dry sobbing didn't stop. I didn't ask about his personal life, but I guess his work family was closer to him than his real one. On my way to the break room, I passed by the obituaries of the residents who passed on the announcement board. As usual, there are about 5 to 7 names up on the board. Grant and Raymond's photos were up there next to a few of the residents. Residents' deaths just seem to be happening more often. I guess it bleeds over to the workers now. Raymond's face was on a smooth paper brown bag, but what I saw didn't reflect that. It was white as snow when I saw the body, like someone sucked all the blood and flesh right off his bones. I started to run to the break room. I needed to focus on something else instead of the bodies. Calling my friends bodies was the best way to remove their no longer existent personalities from them. I burst into the break room to get fresh clothes from my backpack and check up on myself. No cuts to be found. I only found the culprit of my stained hoodie when I went to get a replacement. The shirt I chose from the bag was stained too. The last time I used the bag was when I found the bodies. I flipped my backpack upside down and spilled everything out onto the floor. My glasses, case, phone, charger, and spare clothes all came out as expected, but a small brown and red notebook fell to the ground with a thwack. I don't ever remember seeing it before. It was a high-quality, leather-bound journal with a strap to keep the covers closed. The leather had dark crimson on it. The first few pages looked like an idea dump. There was a list of songs under the heading Soundtracks for a Movie, with one of the songs being Tangerine by Led Zeppelin. The next page was covered in blood. The only things I could make out were the words, Game Ideas. There are a few pages with the heading Accomplishments. Most of these pages were empty. One of the few entries being, Got a Job. Similarly, there were pages with heading To Work on it. It was hard to decipher what some of the text said. Through the curtain of hemoglobin, but most of the pages were filled. One bullet point was circled and highlighted, and all it simply said was zoning out. After that, there were more pages covered in blood, and then a journal started. Every few days, there was an update about how the writer was doing, their thoughts and feelings. One of the entries was about the dish pit. It was highlighted in bright neon yellow. Most of the entry was covered with sangin, but I could make out what follows. 2/12/2025. Management sucks. Notable thing that happened was the garbage disposal breaking down. We had a few plumbing issues before, which management didn't deem as top priority fix. So I knew this wasn't going to be fixed anytime soon. I wish they gave a shit about us. My immediate thought was that I should not have read this. This was crime scene evidence, and I was ruining it all with my fingerprints. This was Grant's notebook. The only reason I could tell was because of the fluid English, yet the countless spelling mistakes. I should have taken it to the police, but maybe I thought there was something in here that could answer what happened, and cops wouldn't show me because of confidentiality and whatnot. I let the noisiness take a hold. I kept reading. I'll try my best to transcribe what it says through the gore. These thoughts grew ever more common over the past weeks, and so with the daydreaming. I kept asking Maxwell, but he just said that the same thing as before. I always had a fear of not being in control of my body or mind. Probably why I talked to Maxwell so much about my insecurities. Insecurities were spelled wrong in the notebook. A lot of words were. The blood was too thick to read what was next. I tried to recall any time I saw Maxwell and Grant talking together, but only his lifeless body popped up in my mind. I didn't want to show Maxwell the journal. He would have probably broken down and even worse than before. So I followed his suggestion and I left for the day. I was going to read through the journal as much as I could. Hours have passed and I kept asking myself why I have this. I feel like I opened Pandora's box. Most of the entries I can read make me feel like I should have been there for Grant more. He seems so fine on the outside, but it's clear he had some issues going on. This journal entry was dated 2 months ago before his death. 2/17/2025. Bad thoughts. Some shifts while I was cleaning the dishes, I would think of some songs that would go perfect in a movie that I had been creating in my mind for the last 10 months while daydreaming. I also thought about what I was going to get from the vending machine on lunch break every shift. Rarely would I think of the darker thoughts. Last shift, a thought that entered my mind was how shitty this job is. Sure, it paid well and it provided just enough to get by, but it was a dead end. There's nowhere to learn or grow, definitely no place to get a promotion. I never went to college, and I had to get my GED because I messed up so badly in high school. Was I trapped here? Was this a trap of my own making? That was enough, my mind deemed. I came back to reality to see the sink was overflowing. Grant was older than me, but by how much? I don't know. I never bothered to ask. I regret it now. Maybe he could have gotten his thoughts out to another person, even if it was something small. Grant was full-time in this place, 5 days a week, 8-hour shifts each of those days. Before his death, he worked 6 days a week, 10-hour shifts. The job paid surprisingly well, so there was no reason for him to work so much. Maxwell fought to increase our pay and so much paid vacation time. You'd think he'd never want us around to work. Every few days, Grant would update his journal with more stories about, as he puts it, daydreaming. They were depressive death spirals of thought he had while working. Some were shorter, only describing his thoughts in a few sentences, while others were longer, with whole paragraphs. He described it here in this entry. Usually, I would put some earbuds and listen to music, podcasts, or audios. After a while of working, you usually get into a groove where my body takes over the mundane task of cleaning plates so that my mind is free to wander. I hate it when I read that. It was just a sign of more awful things to come. All of these journal entries were highlighted. Here are as many as I could get down that were clear enough to read. 2/24/2025. Squishy water balloons. Bodies and minds were one of full things we had control over in our lives. Well, not really. My mind wasn't entirely my own at any time. Some disease like schizophrenia or dementia could come and ravage it as it pleased. My body could give me cancer one day. If it makes a mistake, my hair was going to fall out one day and my body would decay, just like the residents here. I hated that. I don't think I want to know I'm rotting. Maybe at the ripe age at 50, I would. It feels wrong to type this last part now that he's gone. Would he even want his deepest thoughts out in the world to see? Why else would he highlight them? I'm choosing to skip to the end of the entry. My train of thought was interrupted by two things. My earbuds running out of battery with a loud doot doot doot, and a sharp pain in my palm. Damn it. I was letting my mind wander again. The pain was from a knife cut. I must have grabbed it by the blade. Blood was dripping out from underneath and from the hole of the cut on my latex glove onto the sink. Maybe my mind was already betraying me. I was there that shift. God, and to think I didn't do anything. I thought it was an accident, not self-harm. Maybe if I had reached out to him, he'd still be here. 3/3/2025. Leftover ideas. Why do the residents waste so much food? Tonight, almost every plate still had 3/4 of the food on it. Had to scrape it all into the trash can. I could have taking it downtown to the homeless shelter and giving it away. I mean, the chefs just toss out all of the bread every night. It's such a waste. Maybe I can talk with Maxwell or the floor manager. Maybe we could start a program to feed people. Grant did talk with Maxwell about it, and I overheard it. No, we can't do it. Think of logistics. All of the holes we'd have to jump through, paperwork, just everything. Was what I heard first. Okay, I understand, but I can take my car. We don't have to tell anyone about it. I can take it in some of my containers to the homeless shelter. This conversation must have been going on for a while. No, we can't let anything leave here. What if a resident is sick? We don't want germs spreading to another facility. What about the food we don't use? The leftovers we toss? Grant was pleading. It was silent for a long time. Fine, I can help out. We can sneak out some leftover bread every night. Don't tell anyone. Thank you, Max. Grant started walking away, and I had to act like I was doing something else. 3/16/2025. Kitty poster. Jacqueline put up a hand-drawn, hang-in-there poster above the sink. She really is an artist. Maybe we can get her to do a bigger one for this place. It warms this cold, desolate room. It's been keeping me focused. Thanks, Jacqueline. I put it up because it was so barren inside the dish pit. Sand-colored popcorn, windowless walls surrounded whoever was stuck in that sink. You could forget how colorless and claustrophobic it was if you had earbuds in, but I think the poster brought a little life to the place. I'm glad I made a little bit better for Grant, even if it was for a few weeks. 3/22/2025. Meditation. I sometimes put my hand under the sink to let the water run over. I try to focus on just the water running, nothing else. It's the closest thing I've tried to meditation. The warm water slowly loses its feeling after a while and it becomes temperatureless. It brings me a nice comfort. 4/1/2025. Matthew. The rest of this shift was miserable. All I was thinking about was D. I didn't want to zone out and drift away. So I try to focus on rinsing plates. Grab plate 1, rinse, and grab the next one. I guess in reality, these thoughts brought me back to my brother. Grab plate 2, rinse, and grab the next one. We both had a bad childhood. He took care of me through most of it, which he never had to do. Grab plate 3, rinse, and grab the next one. I mean, if he didn't, not too much of value would have been lost. When he drank himself to death, much more was lost than what remains. Grab plate 5, rinse, and grab the next one. The only reason I'm still living my life is because of him. After losing him so long ago, maybe it was time to join him. But I'm scared of what's on the other side. Even if I missed him that bad, I couldn't join him because I'm a grab plate 9, rinse, and then grab the next one. I would do anything to hide this pain, to focus on anything else instead of being alone, trapped in my mind. Grab plate 18, rinse, and grab the next one. That's right. I was still in my mind. My attempts to stay focused failed miserably. Very in character. I want to keep apologizing, but I don't even know what it will do. I didn't do anything, is what I keep telling myself. But that's the problem. I could have done something. As bad as it sounds, the reason why there were 2 deaths becomes clear to me. Grant was severely unwell, and it was just getting worse. Maybe he did something irrational. I hated myself for even thinking that. Sure, there were a lot of unexplained elements in my head, but at least if I took it to the police, I knew what had happened now. It made sense to me until I realized that the last entry was the last normal one. There had been a rip and a few pages following it. I was expected to find more of the same moving forward, but I started to accept that this might have been a murder until I read this. 5/7/2025. Can't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about it. It felt like it had made a nest in my mind, and it was resting there, waiting for me to give it more thought. I thought maybe writing about it would get it out of my head. Maybe it only made it worse. I haven't gone back to work for a while, but it didn't matter. The thing in the sink followed me ever. What? The train of thought I had was just derailed completely. What on earth could have Grant have been writing about? I wanted to read more, but the paper was torn. I checked on my bag and I found 2 paper scraps, but they didn't fit there. The first one read, "If you're scribbled down fast on a hard top of a drawing." It wasn't in pen or pencil or Sharpie like the rest of the book. It was in blood. The drawing underneath had to be somewhere else in the book. The other scrap wasn't paper. It was an old crumbled up Polaroid. The photo was of a person seemingly chugging a can of something in an old, careless garage. The light in the photo was a blinding white, a combination of the camera flash and the fluorescent bulbs. It made it so that detecting features of the face was impossible. You couldn't tell hair color, facial feature, anything. The only defining feature was the Grateful Dead shirt at the bottom of the frame. I didn't pay much attention to the photo and attempted to search my bag again for more paper, but there was nothing. So I attempted to find the page with the missing scribble. I flipped back to see if the piece of paper matched with any previous page, but found one I'd previously overlooked. It was another entry. It related to an injury Grant had on his last shift. I saw him alive. 4/19/2025. What I saw. As I'm flung back into reality, the smell of something meaty hits my nose. I look down at my hand to see an amalgam of flesh and latex rubber. My hand had been under the steaming water the entire time. I was washing the plates with only my left hand. The latex of the glove melted off, letting the water onto my bare skin. I don't remember feeling anything at any point, certainly not now. My hand had third-degree burns, and whatever latex that remained had fused with the skin. Blood was leaking out where the skin had taken the most damage. I must have been in shock because all my attention was focused on watching the flesh peel off and fall into the sink. As flesh fell away, that thing came. It came into view. I don't know if I saw the paw or the tentacle first. They were so small I couldn't even tell what they were at first. All I know is that there was something in that sink. It was black, the same black that Mothman is depicted in. If I had felt the pain, the noise of the scream, I would have let it out if I was in pain. It wouldn't compare to the sound I made when I saw that thing. The thing in the sink must have known I saw it. The tentacle and the paw quickly rescinded down the drain hole. I staggered back and just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. What the fuck did I just see? Was I going insane? No, it had to be real. My scream got the attention of Jacqueline and Raymond, who came running immediately. The only reason I forgot that sight was because of the more mangled one that was a week later. But I didn't forget the smell. The water vapor carried it throughout the kitchen. Grant was speechless. We thought he was in shock, and rightfully so. Half of his arm was drilling and melting off, hitting the sink like a bowl of thick soup. Raymond called an ambulance, and I rushed over to the medical cabinet to grab anything I thought would help. Maxwell came running in after us, but he didn't do anything to help. Instead, he just started crying, sobbing uncontrollably. I didn't understand at the moment, and I was mad. I yelled at Max to get it together. I should apologize to him for that. Grant didn't come back to work again after that, until I found him in the front of the sink, missing more flesh of the same arm. My mind so badly wanted answers, my body began to shake. Did his mind make something up to try and hide the mental image of his own arm melting? Was he insane? I wanted that to be true. I didn't want to see the thing he saw, but there was nothing to see. Tentacles couldn't fit in the sink, or a paw, or any sort of animal for that matter. Otherwise, the thing would have had to be a shapeshifter to fit in. I had thought to think rationally. One nagging thought remained as I tried to explain everything. Why would he write the rest of what I'm about to read? He had to have had seen something if he had written about it this much. I shook away the dangling thought. I started flipping back towards where I was previously to get a better picture of Grant's psychosis. More journal entries popped up, just adding more questions to the pile. More missing papers and more clots of Ruby censoring of critical information didn't help. It was all right in front of me, and yet I couldn't see it. Something discernible did come through every now and again. Like, what if daydreaming were never something the human mind could do? Or it fucking showed me itself like an anglerfish. I didn't know what to make of it. Of course, I told myself the obvious answer, that he was unwell. My fib to myself just made me more curious to understand what he was talking about. The closer to the end of the journal, the more soaked and liquid the pages became, and the crazier the handwriting. Letters no longer were confined to the lines. Each one was contorted into different shapes and sizes. Words were either too small to read by the naked eye or too big to fit on the page. One page was blank, except for one line, which had hundreds of different sentences written on the same line over and over again. One page wasn't written in any language I could detect, but it seemed to me that Grant had followed the grammar rules of wherever it came from. Every letter in this language seemed to be written with painstaking care and effort. Not even the slightest deviation in shape for some of the reappearing characters. A new feature for the journal. The whole page started to resemble meaningless schizophrenia rambling, yet it oozed confidence about it. It meant nothing to me and my quest for explanation, but it still impressed me. One page had the word plane written down over and over again. What that seemed to be the bullet points underneath. The first one read out, bad thoughts. One bullet point read out, try smoking. Another, try drinking. The blood was too thick to read what was in the middle. The last bullet point read, listen to sad music and burn Matthew. Besides plan, and another word was written over and over again. It was simply cut. The next pages were titled, Wake Up, in big, bold letters. More bullet points. One said noise. Another said touch. One line was haphazardly scribbled out, and it said, when it's full. My brain couldn't make sense of it. Every theory I had crafted seemed to be true and false all at once. Everything supports that he was insane. But my gut feeling couldn't shake that something was there in the sink, tormenting Grant. I made a violent page turn, and a waterfall of colorful papers and tape fell out onto my lap. Sticky notes and lined paper were stuck together with tape and glue. It was a diagram of what Grant had seen in the sink. The tentacle was crudely drawn in with a black Sharpie. The tentacle wasn't exactly like an octopus. It looked malnourished, about the size of an index and middle finger held together. The tentacle didn't have any deviation in size or shape until the end, where it had become a stub. It didn't have the suckers on it. Instead, it was countless proboscis, where each of the little suction cups should be. Grant estimated that maybe 100 to 200 small needles were in each group. He must have gotten a worse look at the paw, he described. It was scribbled down with no size estimates. I would guess it couldn't be bigger than a cat's paw. Otherwise, there was no way the whole animal could fit into the garbage disposal. Grant drew what looked like talons and webbed toes. For once, I entertained the idea that it was real. The thought of whatever this animal was living right in front of me forced me to dry heave. I slid the journal away from me and ran to the bathroom. With the journal falling onto the floor, I fell to the ground in front of the toilet and I tried to vomit to distract myself for hours. It was all too much to handle. When I finally got back up and walked back to the book, it was open to a page that was written in the dark, foul-smelling ink that covered the rest of the book. It stated, adding this, the sink isn't safe to use. I stood staring into the sink. It was the next day. I hadn't slept at all. I was too busy trying to wash the blood off of the pages of the book so that I can read more. I just ended up washing some of the ink and let off. I lost track of time and only realized it when the sun came up through my blinds. I wanted to call out of work, but I needed to find some link between Grant's book to reality. I needed to prove that maybe he was delusional and maybe he did harm Raymond. Someone grabbed my shoulder and spun me around. Jacqueline. It was an unfamiliar voice. Christ, what are you doing? I was in my own little world when the new hire woke me up. Gosh, man, I was just trying to introduce myself, you know? Sorry, lady, said the new hire. I didn't realize how harsh my words were at the moment. I told myself I was cranky from the lack of sleep. Really, it was lack of answers. Oh my, I'm sorry. My name is Jacqueline. You're the new hire. Nice to meet you. Sorry, I was just on autopilot, I guess. I ended with a nervous chuckle that made me sound stir-crazy. Oh, okay, you know. I was just asking because I think my schedule's all messed up. But boss man is telling me I'm staying here late with him because of an event or whatever pickleball tournament they are running here. The new hire said before walking towards the board in the hallway. He was right. He was scheduled until midnight, along with Maxwell. The latest I've ever been here was 9. Grant and Raymond's faces glared up at me from the bottom of the announcement board. The photo of Grant looked like he was staring into my eyes. I looked for a way to change the subject. So what's your name? Maybe Maxwell just wants to teach you as much as you can learn in a day. It's your second day, right? I bet you'll like this job. I've been here for just about over 3 years. My mouth rambled. How long were they here? He was looking at Maxwell and Grant. The question made the hallway fall quiet. Raymond was here for 10 years, Grant 5. My high-pitched fake work voice fell away. Cool, but they got shit done, you know, he said as he walked back to the dish pit. I know. Raymond taught me how to get the 4 hours of dishes done in 30 minutes. Grant taught me how to dive and deliver food on the shitty golf cart. Grant also told me about the thing in the sink. I was fighting with the question, was there even anything in the sink at all? I practically had my head down the drain with my phone flashlight for the first hour of my shift. The idea that Grant was a delusional and harmful person was what I was hoping for. I wanted to punch myself so hard, bones would shatter just for thinking that. The next few hours kept my mind busy, training the teenage stoner. It was a blessing in disguise. Oh, dude, the stain won't come out. Do you think you could take over, Jackie? I need to hit a dart. It was whatever his name was. I was busy observing the bloodstains on the poster again. It was the start of a large slash of blood that still hadn't been cleaned up. I followed the slash up the wall and it ended at a security camera. It was one of those things your brain never registers until everything else in your surroundings is silent. It was pointed right at the sink and to the drying racks behind it where I was sitting. Maybe I could get an answer to whether this thing in the sink really exists. The security office was at the front of the retirement community. I passed by it every day I worked. I didn't want to wait until the end of my shift, but I didn't want Maxwell to be left alone with the toddler currently struggling to remove a ketchup stain from a ceramic plate. I'm going to go check with Maxwell about your schedule, okay? Make sure it's all good, I said in my work voice. I needed to think about how to talk to a normal person for a few minutes, at least maybe to discuss the camera and what I found in that journal. Dude, I asked for help and you walked away. Whatever, man. I paid him no attention as I walked towards Maxwell's office. I grabbed the keys for the golf cart hanging on the outside of the office door before knocking. A quiet weeping came from inside the door. I paused. Maybe now wasn't the time to talk about a camera and a bloody journal. Instead, maybe a little checkup. I knocked and hear him quickly clean up inside his small room. The door opens and out pops Maxwell. Hey, Jacqueline, need something? He asked. I'm just making sure you're okay. So you okay? He takes my words in for a second and thinks. I also take this time to appreciate the moment of being able to talk to him. Maxwell is always wearing a flannel over his work shirt. It seemed like it would go with a good beard, but his face is clean-shaven. Nonetheless, the orange flannel he has on now matches his green eyes as well. Green eyes that were bloodshot from crying. Can I give you a hug? I ask. He sucked on his lips and gives me a nod. It's a quick one. No more than 5 seconds long. It was awkward, but for a moment, I forgot about everything. All about Grant. I hope Maxwell did too. I back off and sit down on the stool in the room while he sits back down on his chair. Want to talk about stuff going on, I said. I couldn't poison the man's mind of the content of the journal or the fact that I believed that something lived in the sink. Yeah, where to begin, am I right? He chuckled out, but I chuckled with him. We talk for about half an hour. We talk about life, but mostly about Raymond and Grant. I share my favorite memory of Raymond, that being his band. They were a mariachi band that sometimes played for some of the residents. I usually snuck out to listen whenever they came. I always sat in the back, and he always would, without fail, manage to see me and give me a big thank you after the show. He was an amazing guitar player. Made me wish I stuck with it. Maxwell said his favorite memory of Raymond was all of the mustache grooming tips he got whenever he was there on downtime. Raymond did have a very well-trimmed horseshoe mustache. Maxwell's favorite memory of Grant is when he first taught Grant how to run deliveries. Apparently, Grant hit 3 mailboxes, 2 parked cars, and barely missed an old woman walking her dog. Maxwell was convinced that the flat tire was Grant's fault. When I had to share my favorite memory of him, the journal kept crowding my head. I could see the memory I knew I wanted to talk about, but almost everything in it was altered. The joint Grant handed me at the end of the day of my first shift was rolled in bloody paper, and his arms was still gone. He was using his ulna and radius to hold the joint. I just have too many to choose from, I said. I couldn't describe what I saw. I should probably go back and help the new hire. I figured I spent enough time checking up with Maxwell and probably should do something productive that wasn't this. Thanks, Jacqueline. I appreciate you, he said. Right before he left his office, I was thankful for him too. I'm glad he was still around. I forgot all about asking him for the new hire schedule. Oh well. Right as the clock hit 7, it was time to go check the security footage. I said goodbye to Maxwell and the new hire and headed for the door. I'd yet to lay eyes on it, the final barrier holding back the part of my body begging to believe in it. Hopefully, I was going to prove that it was either mad ramblings or nothing else. Wouldn't the police have checked it? If they had done this, the mystery would have been solved right away. I was beginning to believe that this might have been a futile trip. I pulled over next to the small building, got out of the car, and hastily walked to the door of the office. And without meaning to, pounded on the door harder than I imagined. I might as well go through it. The door swung open and Reggie looked down at me with a surprise. Oh, hi, Jacqueline. You gave me a scare, he said. He gave a hearty chuckle. Sorry, Reggie. I was coming to check something. A puzzled look grew upon his face. Oh, is everything all right? He asked. Yeah, I just noticed the security camera above the sink. I barely finished the sentence before Reggie's face changed color in an instant. He shifted. His body just barely blocked the camera feed behind him at the desk. Thousands of alarm bells rang in my head. Well, yeah, what about it? You know we can't give out any of the footage, Jacqueline, he said hastily. I never asked for footage, Reggie. Those words came out of their own accord in a sudden bounce of confidence. Reggie was caught up with his words, trying to formulate a sentence. Look, I want to see what happened that night. You've seen it, the thing in the sink. I took the biggest gamble of my life with that sentence. Either he would know what I'm talking about, or he'd look at me absolutely bewildered. Reggie regained his composure and with a blank, cold face asked, "Did Maxwell send you?" Those 4 words derailed the momentary confidence I had found. Did Maxwell know about this? He didn't tell me. All the confidence I had gained in that moment washed away. While my thoughts were running through my mind, my head started a slow, somber nod. I guess it was about time. It's been hard for us. I've never heard him refer to it as the thing in the sink, though. Come in. Some of Reggie's kindness returned to his face as he shot me a quick smile. He opened his stance and gave me a quick wave through the door. The security room was small, with barely enough room for a desk and an office, a water cooler, and the buttons to let the bar gate up. Reggie grabbed the back of the chair and swung it around, raising his palm and offering the seat. I sat and he whips the seat around so that my face meets the screen. He pulls out a USB drive and plugs it in and opens the folder titled Offers. Hundreds of videos pop up in the screen. No words are exchanged between us. Only one of those hundreds of videos mattered to me in the moment. Reggie didn't pay attention to the screen, his eyes slightly placed to the side of his skull, observing me. Each of the video logs is numbered. I see 1, 2, 23, 56, 89, 117, 130, and finally 147/148, the last video log. Reggie's round body blocking me from leaving tries to give me the comfort that I still have a choice of leaving this situation by asking, "Are you sure you want to see this?" I didn't say anything. I turned my head, letting my eyes meet his. Although he is stone-faced, his eyes shake in a quiet pleading. I quietly nodded, letting my eyes drift back to the screen. He rubs the bottom of his nose, opens the file, and turns away, opening his phone. The video doesn't have any sound, and nothing is visible. The light above the sink flickers on, giving the cold metal below a white, sterile glow. The sink is the only thing visible. For a while, before a small orange glow starts in the corner near the drying racks, the glow illuminates Grant's face as he lights up a cigarette. Grant holds up something else to the lighter, letting it burn in his undamaged hand. He doesn't move while the fire gets to his fingertips. He does the same thing for a few more times, but then it comes to the last small square-shaped paper. He walks into the light. It's a Polaroid photo. He stares at it for a minute before holding the lighter up to it. He hesitates to burn the image. Instead, Grant crumbled the photo in his hands and dropped it to the ground, crushing it below his worn-out Vans. He puts in an earbud, clicks something on his phone, and walks towards the sink. This time, the first time that I have seen him for who he was, not the body left behind. He's wearing ripped jeans and a logoless hoodie. The light shimmers across his black buzz cut and bounces off his silver piercings into the camera. His face unshaven and shaggy, sickly black bags pulling his eyes down so that you can see the red underneath. He takes one last toke of his cigarette and flicks it into the sink. Grant just stares, staring for an eternity deep into the darkness of the sink. He is as solid as stone. All that happens to him physically is that a large, singular tear falls from his face. I follow the glistening tear as it falls into the sink where I finally see it. The first feeling that washes over me is denial. I try to explain it. Maybe that the sink was just backed up and that there was a plumbing problem. and some food at the end of the shift was pushed back to the pipes. Maybe Raymond at the end of the shift left something by accident when he was closing up that night. Maybe he served a calamari dinner to the residents. I knew that these were all false in my heart. The plumber came and fixed the garbage disposal that day. I closed up as Raymond mopped, and the kitchen gave the residents chicken skewers for dinner that night. I knew my mind was trying to explain the unexplainable. But as another, then a fourth shape slowly emerged from the sink, my eyes finally let my brain believe. The thing in the sink was real and was currently wrapping its tentacles around Grant. I started to audibly cry out, "Move, move," but it was all in vain. He didn't seem like he wanted to move. Maybe he couldn't. The tentacles looked exactly like what Grant had written down, except they didn't seem to have an end. Grant was tall, over 6 feet. He had to bend down to wash burns and stains off dishes. He was standing upright, and the tentacles were already wrapping around the backside of his head. The tentacles all seemed to have a mind of their own, each trying to stick deep onto Grant's flesh as they grew closer to his skin. Grant still did not move, yet tears streamed down his solid face. I could barely see the right side of his face. Were his pupils even looking wildly around at the tentacles, trying to escape his skull? 2 of the tentacles started to caress the back of his head. They flattened out and sank their needles into his skull. I instinctively shot my hand up over my open mouth, and I used the same hand to block one of my eyes. I forced myself to keep watching. The 2 tentacles had submerged their spikes and started to pull apart, almost like butter. The back of Grant's scalp and skull opened up, but it wasn't violent. No blood poured out, no twitching, just a clean slide open like 2 curtains on the stage, like it was that easy for a skull to slide open. It still didn't deter my body from shivering uncontrollably. The first 2 tentacles had held the back plate of the skull open, while the other 2 started flipping through Grant's brain, folding like a book. The tentacles didn't sink into the brain. They gently caressed the bumps and wrinkles, like they were following words. Grant's pupils had stopped moving. I would have believed that he had accepted his new possession if the tears weren't like waterfalls. The tentacles kept reading his brain for minutes before they seemed to gather enough of what they were looking for. The 2 holding tentacles slowly unanchored from the back of his scalp. The skull and the scalp slid back into place, cleanly fitting in like nothing had happened. 3 of the tentacles retreated into the drain. The last one of the tentacles grabbed Grant's wrist and started pulling his hand towards the sink. Grant's statue was steadfast. I quietly pleaded for him to do anything to attempt to run. As his bandaged hand was dragged into the sink, up to his elbow, his other tattooed arm started floating up to right below the sink. I wasn't expecting him to move. He reached for something. His fingers fumbled around, looking for something underneath the sink. I couldn't see it, but I had a feeling it was the switch on the garbage disposal. Grant's pupils was as high as it could go. It was both escaping the pool of tears and the image of his own hand being ripped away. I couldn't either. I had always seen the aftermath. There's no reason to watch it happen. I turned around and slammed my forehead to my knees, slamming my eyes shut, only letting the biggest tears out. I swear I thought I heard a sound in the video for a second, the sound of a click and then a crunch. It sounded like if someone dropped a carton of eggs, a loud crack, with the sound of the yolks being squeezed and squirted out. I slammed my hands over my ears. It didn't stop the noise of celery when you bite down on it. I knew it was Grant's hand. I heard the blade get stuck at some point, making the same particular sound of metal clunking against the bones echoed in my skull. I fell out of the chair screaming, trying to get the sound out of my imagination. Jacqueline! Reggie rushed over to my side, throwing his phone on the table. His hands felt cold on my back, reeling me back to where I was and the danger I was in. Are you okay? Reggie reached for his phone, typed quickly, and put his phone up to his ears. Maxwell, we got a problem. It was all too clear to me that this was an operation. If I can't get out now, all I can hope for is an easier death than Grant's. I pulled my elbow in and pushed back as hard as I could towards Reggie. I landed on his shoulder. It wasn't much, but it was enough to knock him off his feet. I scrambled to my feet and threw my body towards the door. I slammed it and ran. I'm sure Reggie had told Maxwell that I figured out that there was something in the sink. I ran past the golf cart. The thing only had a top speed of 15 miles per hour if you got lucky. My eyes were filled with tears falling behind me as I ran. I didn't know where I was running to. I told myself that I needed my car, but I knew deep down I needed to see the thing for myself. He had logs of what I had presumed were hundreds of deaths due to the thing in the sink. I didn't want to believe any of this was real at first, but now that's all I want. The last thing I heard from the security office was Reggie screaming into his phone, Jacqueline knows! She's coming straight to you! Trying to make me think that they hadn't already set up a plan. I arrived back at the kitchen out of breath. I fumbled through my pockets, constantly looking back to make sure Reggie wasn't behind me. I prayed I didn't drop my name tag while running. After a mini heart attack when the first pocket came up empty, I ripped it out of my second pocket and scanned the barcode. The door unlocked, and I tore through the labyrinth of back halls until I reached the kitchen door. I grabbed the handle and hesitated. What was I doing? Most of my run had been focused on the monster in the sink. I have gave into the argument with myself. Maybe this video was CGI to cover up for murders. In this moment of uncertainty, I chose to lay my eyes upon what had been living in the sink. Maxwell didn't matter anymore. All I wanted was to see the dark flesh that took my coworkers, no, my friends from me. I opened the door and sprinted into the darkness. I tried to make a right turn, but came flying in, sliding on a streak of dirty water, and slammed into a drying rack full of pots, pans, and cutlery. All sense of stealth was gone as a canopy of metal crashed into concrete. I grabbed a knife and wobbled to my feet. If Reggie had caught up or if Maxwell was waiting, at least I had some defense now. I followed the streak of dirty water to its source. As I grew closer, the single light above the sink called to me like the pearly gates of hell, a warm, ephemeral light. The light revealed something to me in that moment. What I had been following wasn't water. It was a deep brown blood. It didn't stop me. It only drew me closer. I now stood where Grant stood, staring deep into the sink. I stared into the blackness of the drain, a gluttonous black that swallowed all the light that entered. I stared for what felt like an hour, knowing whatever was in the sink was looking right back at me, studying me. That was all I could focus on. Nothing else mattered. Jacqueline! I heard it, but I paid no attention. Jacqueline! I heard it, and this time as if underwater. Jacqueline! The muffled footsteps grew louder, and the small human part of me tried to look at whoever was calling. But I tried to move my hands to use the knife, but they wouldn't bulge. It felt like they were encased in a ton of concrete. I pulled with my shoulders and I got the sensation that they were moving, but my hands didn't move an inch. I pulled my feet up with my thighs, but the same thing happened. I tried to look around, but it felt like a concrete neck pillow was trapping me. Nothing moved except my eyeballs. My vision felt more sunken in and I couldn't see as much as before. I felt myself shrinking into my brain like a setting sun on the horizon. I knew nothing was holding me physically. My hands were free, no shackles or anything. I kept receding into my mind until I bumped into something. It was squishy yet firm, almost like my back was against a trampoline. I tried to make a sound of shock, but nothing came out. I'm not even sure my mouth opened. The only thing I could see was the drain hole until Maxwell came in front of me, blocking my entire view. He was crying, shaking me, trying to release me from my prison. He looked up and down, trying to find any crack to break the wall encasing me. He stopped moving his head frantically, staring at the knife in my hand. His mouth quaked, eyes streaming tears. He reached for the knife, ripped it out of my hand, and without hesitation, ran the blade down my arm. Nothing. No pain, no warmth from the running blood, nothing. I was trapped. Maxwell broke into tears. He slowly backed away from the sink, letting me finally see the 4 darkest spires of another realm coming out of the retirement home sink. I pulled with all my strength to get away from the sink. For a second, I stumbled back, but it was the trampoline texture again. I didn't know what it was at first, but now it's clear. Whatever was in the sink was holding me hostage in my mind. I felt millions of small tentacles sticking into my skull painlessly, opening it like it had with Grant. Once the back of my skull was open, the thing in the sink used another tentacle to flop through the wrinkles of my brain. It was looking for something. All I could think of in that moment was more repressed memories it could devour. It took time making sure to read everything I'd known for the past 24 years of my conscious life. It stopped where I thought it would be the last chapter of the book. It removed its needles from my skull, but 1. It was the first ounce of pain I felt while in its invisible grasp. It retreated its tentacles and my skull slid back into place. The trampoline texture receded from my back as an invisible curtain pushed me back to the full view. Lukewarm blood dripped down my hand. Warmth I had felt again. I looked down, my neck obeying, to see the gash Maxwell had left. Laying eyes upon it finally let my brain recognize my own pain. I unconsciously shot my hand towards the wound, grabbed it, and tried to stop the bleeding. I looked around to see where Maxwell had gone. Not very far. He was staring at me with emotions that scared me more than the encounter with the thing in the sink. He looked relieved, taking deep breaths with a small smile. He dropped the knife and walked towards me with open arms, wrapping me in a cold embrace that smelt like iron and cigarette smoke. He whispered into my ear, heavily breathing, "Finally, thank you." His voice was shaky and dry. I pushed him off, which didn't deter his surprise. "Jacqueline, please don't fight it," he was pleading. I didn't care. I cut him off. "What the heck is happening? What are you doing?" I couldn't cry anymore. I didn't even want to know the answers. I just wanted out of the pit. "It's okay not to understand. I still don't get it at all. Everything I know about it, I guess, brings you to itself through any process it sees fit." He points towards the sink. "Did that thing tell you that and you believe it?" I was dumbfounded. You did, didn't you? You followed its call to the moment. Everything you've done was orchestrated by it. It sees something in you. I let out a skull and my jaw dropped, but I never disagreed. There are tentacles in that sink. I hated how he talked about it like it was a football coach. It had a plan for me. You don't respect that thing. You're scared. It's nothing more than an animal, a predator. The skeptic in me never left. Maxwell's flimsy smile fell away and he spoke his true mind, and it came out with a boom. I don't want this anymore. I never wanted to be a puppet for some house cat. I don't know why it wanted me. It listened to me just like you, and it followed me everywhere. I tried to run, move states out of the country, just away from that thing, but it followed me. He took a moment to catch his breath and continuing with a far, meeker voice. It crammed itself in my car, under the hood. It took her. She didn't even look at me when it went off the road. All focus torn away so easily, then it was just me and it. He looked for understanding in my eyes, but the only thing running through my mind was confusion. Whoever her was, it was an accident. And I'm sorry, but you can't blame it on this animal. You hurt Grant and Raymond. You don't get to blame the animal. I was trying to convince Maxwell that this thing, whatever it was, is just a rabid animal. At least, that's what I told myself. Don't you dare say that about that monster. I never intended to hurt any of you. How was I supposed to know Grant was a water buffalo of trauma? No one ever brings that here to work. He ranted in a wild frenzy of defense. You're wrong, but he was so incredibly right. I never saw any distress in Grant. No one did. I was desperate to please it. So maybe that was why it would leave me alone. So I brought it here. I thought a retirement home would be perfect for it. Years of regret among thousands of residents would be a gold mine for whatever it wanted. I thought that it would only hurt those close to the end of life. I thought it would be happy, and I was right. I thought it would come for them and leave me alone, though not bring them to me to clean up. Maxwell swallowed the knot in his throat. What are you even talking about? Regret? It eats the flesh and blood just like any other predator. Nothing can eat thoughts, I screamed at him. It doesn't matter what you think, what you believe. It just chooses those who help it in any way, Maxwell said as the room fell silent. Maxwell's eyes looked past me, past everything, longing for something not visible in the distance. I felt adrenaline pulling in my calves and shins. Why me? He asked as he broke the silence. The adrenaline was about to overflow in my legs. Maxwell fell to the ground, crawling towards the sink, whimpering. She'll understand. She has to, and take it away over and over. I did understand. A dish pit would be the perfect place to house it. Easy access to cleaning materials, plenty of drains, no carpets or cloth, just cold tiles. Right out back was a trash compactor. No one would notice the smell of rot if the stench of trash was already in the air. And the truck would come pick up the trash. No one would bat an eye. That explained everything in my mind. Maxwell was someone who I trusted ever so deeply, was a killer who had a perfect plan for hiding his victims. Reggie, a man meant to protect, was an accomplice. This was all just the plan of two sick men who wanted me to join them. That was the only rational explanation for everything. I started moving again, away from the sink. The second my brain registered what it was, I let out a shriek. I don't know how to describe it. It sounded like 1,000 voices all imitating a scream by whispering. Yet I still felt deep in my chest. Claws ripped into the metal, anchoring it. It was no bigger than a possum. Its skin was smooth and deep black. Wet food chunks covered the sink, making the room reek of putrid wet food. Its tentacles were holding Maxwell, coddling him as he cried to himself. I saw all the small needles brushing his hair. I whipped my head around and sprinted. It was the most I have seen of it, yet in the second I looked, I only glanced. I didn't want to look at any of it any longer than I had to. I couldn't help but feel a deep foreboding dread in my stomach. I was right. It was an animal, but not of this world. It looked like it was vermin, like wherever it came from, whatever dimension spat this creature out. It was nothing but the very bottom of the food chain, yet here it dined on humans as much as it wanted to. I wasn't going to let it hurt me or read me or whatever the hell it wanted. I ran past the blood on the floor, past the stench of the garbage disposal, and straight for my car. The sun and the breeze failed to give me the sense of relief I desperately craved. I pulled out of the parking lot, screeching. I didn't slow down when I saw the barrier at the security office blocking my path. I didn't slow for Reggie, waving his arms and trying to stop me. He jumped onto the side and I slammed through the bar gate, bits of plastic or glass flying into my face. I didn't slow for any lights or stop signs. I only stopped when I pulled into my apartment complex and ran inside to hide within the false comfort of my home, where I tearlessly sobbed. It's been 2 days. I want the police to call me in for questioning, for interviews. I want to tell them about the tapes. I want to tell them about the trash compactor so they can find the bloodless bodies of the new guy. I want to tell them everything except the thing in the sink. I haven't told them anything because it follows me everywhere. I know it's there. I turn my head for a second and see a dark shape move out of view, where the light from the lamp cast an undeniable shadow of a tentacle. I see scratch marks on my front door. Birds with hundreds of holes show up on my balcony like an offering, the same one it wants. The only silver lining to the situation is that I don't have to think about the betrayal from Maxwell, since my mind was so preoccupied. The hurt I felt deep within my soul is undefinable. Only the sight and torment of an extraterrestrial creature could drown it out. The truth is, I can't tell the police. They think I'm insane. Maybe they'd think I'd killed that new guy. I know the police wouldn't even believe me, but maybe you all would. I'm sharing this story now online to get the word out about this thing. I reopened the bloodstained journal to write it all down. Be careful of this thing, wherever it may be or wherever it dwells. Maybe since you know about it now, it will come for you and leave me alone now. I'm so deeply sorry if that's the case, and just in the event it leaves me alone and wanders back to his home, I want to extend the warning Grant gave me back when I found the journal. If you're reading this, please don't apply for a dishwasher position at Riverside Memories Retirement Community. Thanks for listening, and I ran out of beading content for this video since the story was super long, but hope you enjoy and have a good rest of your day.